All right, welcome back to economics. This lecture, I wasn't sure what to call it. I've titled it for now, When Copies Are Very Cheap. It's about things like songs, where it's very easy to download a song, the cost of downloading a song. The true cost to make the song available for you to download is essentially zero. Sort of books and articles now you can get electronically, which means there's essentially no production cost. You don't have to produce paper or ship it to a warehouse or anything. You just distribute it over the internet. Things like pills. Once the company has figured out that a particular molecule will work, then anyone can make the pill cheaply. At least the cost is very cheap. So that's what I mean by copies that are very cheap. And my line about this, it poses some interesting philosophical and economic problems. And my line about it is information, because these are all goods that are where most of the value is in the information contained in them. Information wants to be free. That is, once the value of something is mostly information, and you can distribute information over something as low cost as the internet, or in the case of medicine, as low cost as a pill, the information wants to be free. You want to have a very low marginal cost to buy it, in some sense. So information wants to be free, but people need to get paid. So if all music downloads were free, if all book and article downloads were free, then who would pay for them? And if all pills just cost what they cost to produce, maybe 10 cents a pill, well, who would do the research to come up with figure out which molecules can cure which diseases? So information wants to be free. That is, we want it seems to cost nothing to make copies once we have an idea or a song or whatever. But people need to get paid. What about the people who create these things? So one characteristic of these things is they're sort of like the natural monopoly case, where there's a lot of fixed cost but low marginal cost. So if the marginal cost is very close to zero, that is the marginal cost of distributing or producing an extra pill or distributing a song, you're just paying the electricity for a few electrons to distribute a song, for example. So that means average cost is everywhere declining, because you start out with the fixed cost of sort of before you have one unit, somebody has to compose the song and go into the studio or however they record the song. Somebody has to write the book, so there's a lot of effort there. I'll put some things on the axes. So if you're going to price at marginal cost for allocative efficiency, the price should be close to zero. So it would seem that I'll call this marginal allocative efficiency, because there really is no efficient price. So marginal allocative efficiency means that the price should be close to zero. So if it's worth 5 cents for somebody to be able to listen to a song, to download a song, then that's really what it should cost. It shouldn't be 99 cents. It shouldn't be, used to be, $15 for a CD or something. Those costs are artificial in a world with the internet. Similarly, if a pill should cost 10 cents, if that's the cost to produce and distribute the pill, It shouldn't be $15 or $20, which is what some pills cost uh, when they're uh, when they're on the market and somebody has a monopoly on them. So that's the marginal allocative efficiency. But from the standpoint of the incentive to produce, people need to get paid. So price needs to be greater than zero, and in some cases much greater than zero. For example, if we're talking about a life-saving medicine that let's say affects only 100,000 people, and it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to do research, then each pill is going to have to cost a lot of money if there's going to be incentive for somebody to undertake that hundreds of millions of dollars of research to find that cure. So so that's a way of explaining my phrase, information wants to be free, but people need to get paid. And a term for this, okay, so one of the ways that people do it is, one solution is a patent. And a patent is, in a sense, a grant of a monopoly. So the government says, you have a monopoly on this particular thing. Let's say if it's a pill, you're the only company that can sell the pill. And so the monopolist then is not going to charge a price of marginal cost. They're going to charge a price somewhere above marginal cost. So they might charge a price up here, price charged by a monopolist. So the good news about the patent monopoly, the monopoly that's effectively granted by a patent, is that we know that the monopolist will make a profit. And so because the monopolist will make a profit, we know the monopolist will have an incentive to create the good in the first place. So the reason you undertake research to get a patent is so you can make a profit off the patent. So that's the good news. The bad news is obviously that price is far above the marginal cost, and so fewer people will use that good than really should. So that's a problem with. So the patent solves the people need to get paid problem. It does not solve the information wants to be free problem. And also patents are starting to create a lot of confusion because somebody can patent something that's very generic and vague. Like many years ago, somebody put together a patent for sending email over a cell phone, and then they never did anything with it. And then when BlackBerry actually developed email over a cell phone, then the patent holder jumped in and said, you can't do that without our permission. We own that patent. And in fact, that kind of those kinds of legal disputes over patents are now very prominent in the whole cell phone industry. Every cell phone maker is in the business of trying to capture enough patents so that they can, so that when someone else wants to sue them, then they can sue back. It's called mutually assured destruction. If you sue me for patent infringement, I'll sue you. But it's not there's no logic to it. There's no economic benefit to it. There's just this huge cost of everyone trying to deal with it. And this is a general problem with intellectual property. It does differ. Intellectual property differs from ordinary property. So here's some property that A claims A owns. One of the things about that is that if you go onto that property, you know that you're going onto that property. And if there's something on that property that you take, you have to kind of initiate some kind of physical activity to take that property. So one is you know when you're crossing the boundary, and two is you have to initiate something to take it away. With intellectual property, you don't know where that boundary is. You don't know when you're infringing on someone's patent. You have to do lots of research to find out. So at least many times you don't know. Now, obviously, you could know. You could sort of reverse engineer some drug company's pill, and you know that you're violating their intellectual property. But in many cases, you don't know you're violating it. And the other thing is, it's not the action to go in and steal that that requires initiative. It's actually, with intellectual property, you download a song and you haven't had to go in and physically invade this person's space. In fact, this person has to figure out that you've downloaded the song. So the invasion has to go in this direction. And so that argument is actually used by some libertarians to say that there shouldn't be intellectual property, because their point of property, if the point of property is to clarify and minimize aggression, that is, clarify what aggression means and minimize it. So you say, okay, somebody who comes into A's property to take something is clearly being aggressive. That's a clear definition of aggression, and we don't want aggression in society. We want a peaceful society. That's kind of the libertarian line. Well, if that's true, if the point of property is to clarify and minimize aggression, then you don't want intellectual property, because with intellectual property, this guy is going to go out searching all over to find, in some sense, break into other people's computers or houses to find examples of copies of things so that this person can enforce their ownership of the intellectual property. So so from just a kind of philosophical point of view, it poses a problem. But not all libertarians would say that there should be no such thing as intellectual property, because there's the philosopher John Locke talked about property being developed by sort of mixing your labor. So if you mix your labor with land, you then have a sort of a natural right to that land. Well, somebody who composes a song has, under this Lockean view, a natural right to that song, and therefore they should have an intellectual, that they have property in that song. So so philosophically, should the bands or the companies that produce songs be able to go out on the internet somehow and locate people who have downloaded the song and copied the song and make sure that they pay the company or the band that produced the song? That's a tough question. It's a tough question legally, and it's a tough question economically. So again, the bottom line for intellectual property is that there is no clear, hard and fast philosophical or economic rule for intellectual property. We'll just call those. And my view of it is that we need to specify the nature of the property. So you have things like business ideas. I think since I don't think ideas are worth that much, so I would say they should have no protection. So when somebody comes up with the idea for email over a cell phone, they shouldn't be able to patent that. So I'll just use that as an example: email over a cell phone. Or Amazon wanted to patent one-click ordering. Things like that. They should have no protection, because there really isn't much effort involved in thinking them up, but the hard part is executing them. So the distinction I want to make is between effort to create, and that could be high or low, and then I want to do cost of copying, and well, let's just stick with the effort to create. Let's assume that the cost of copying is very low in all those cases. So when the effort to create is high, then we need to focus on the people need to get paid aspect. And so we've got to, if you're trying to handle the problem as a sort of an omniscient social planner, you'd want something that enables people to get paid. So maybe patent monopolies are one way to do it. A prize is another way to do it. You could have a group of people or the government offer a prize to somebody to develop something. And you could also have patronage. So a rich person or a group of people to get together and agree to pay to support bands or writers, musicians, writers, or scientists or whatever, and through patronage, just say we'll get together and pay you to keep engaging in science or music or art or whatever. So there are possibilities of patents, prizes, and patronage, and those should be most applied when the effort to create is high. When the effort to create is low, things like business ideas, again, business ideas. Now, they may be very costly to implement, but that provides some natural protection. But if just thinking up the idea often is pretty easy, and so that's a low effort. And there you want to emphasize, I think, that the information wants to be free aspect. And so you shouldn't use, certainly not patent monopolies, and probably you wouldn't want to offer much in terms of prizes or patronage. So in terms of patent law, some people have argued that we've kind of got a one-size-fits-all patent law. I forget, it's like a 14-year patent for whatever you can patent. Whatever you can say. Basically, things are either patentable or they're not patentable. There's either or. Maybe we ought to have different gradations of patents. Maybe certain patents ought to last only a little bit of time because the cost of creation is low. So If you spend years researching a drug, maybe you get to have a long-term patent. If not, but something like a business idea, if you get a patent at all, it'll be for very short term. So that's so there are a number of ways of dealing with this issue of intellectual property, and unfortunately, we've kind of handed this over to lawyers, and the lawyers are really they love to argue over patents, and to have everything be done that way, when in fact prizes would work for some things, patronage. Amazon has just started something where they're encouraging authors to put books out for free, and then Amazon is going to have a fund, I think like $500,000 or so, that they're going to use that fund to pay authors. So the way that model works is that consumers, in some sense, subscribe. They pay to like Amazon Prime or something. They pay an annual fee. Consumers subscribe, and then they download books. And Amazon looks at authors and sees the ones that get the most downloads and says, all right, well, you guys deserve relatively more of the subscription money. So the subscription money goes into a fund, and Amazon will certainly take some of it, but the subscription money goes into a fund, and then the fund is distributed by Amazon to various authors. So that, in some sense, becomes a patronage model where the people aren't directly paying to download the books. Once you subscribe, you can download as many books as you want, so that you have this free cost of downloading a book, which is the way it ought to be if if it costs nothing to do the download. So the marginal cost is zero. You get that allocative efficiency, but people get paid out of this generic subscription fund. So you pay one fee for kind of an all-you-can-eat. As a consumer, you pay one fee for all the books you'd want to download, and then Amazon will pay it to the authors. So that's another sort of creative way of handling this intellectual property, and that doesn't require worrying about copyright infringement. Although, like, so because you can download it for free from Amazon, there's no incentive to violate the copyright. There's no copyright issue. The important thing is that Amazon be able to get you to subscribe, and once you subscribe, that generates funds, and those funds can then be distributed to authors. So that's a neat solution to the problem of information wants to be free, because you can download for free, but people need to get paid. The subscription fee goes to the authors. And hopefully over time we will come up with the best solutions to this problem of information wants to be free, but people need to get paid. Let me just finish with that. Information wants to be free, but people need to get paid. And that's it.